So let's chat lessons learned real quick. How many times have you set up a teepee?
This is probably my 5th time.
So it's like one more than me.
One more than you.
All right, so the place that I got this from, it's called Nomadics Tipis, or tipi.com, and they have an in-depth, something like 120-minute long video, measured out perfectly, down to scale. However, for me, I need something simple. Barney it down for Tyler. Okay?
I've never watched a video, so.
Yeah, so the video is great. You should check it out. If you're gonna set this thing up as a permanent structure, use that video. It'll measure everything from radius out, where every pole needs to be exactly. It nails it down. That's why it's 120 minutes long. We set this up in half an hour?
Yeah, maybe 45 minutes.
Half an hour, 45 minutes. So a little bit ugly, I'm okay with that. But essentially the technique I use is this. Lay your 3 biggest poles down, tie a clove hitch on the top of one of the top poles, tie a clove hitch in the middle, twist your pole out, tie a 3rd clove hitch so it doesn't move, set your 3 poles up, set your other poles up around it, and then wrap your rope, which I forgot to do. I got ahead of myself. Then you add your outer teepee to it, wrap it around. In my case, I started at the bottom to kind of tighten it up, and then I started here in the bottom and tighten it up, just kind of get it tight. And then I went from the top down like you're supposed to, because I don't have a ladder or anything. And then you like it? You like it? Okay, so then that's how I get the front poles on. The other thing too, if you're not measuring it, if you're just kind of setting it up, when you set it up, you're gonna see like the bottom's tight and the top's loose. Just squeeze your poles in a little bit, and then the whole thing will kind of slide in. Or if the bottom's loose and the top's tight, pull your poles out a little bit. And you kind of just eyeball a little bit. That's what I've done. Because the teepee's gonna be here for 2-3 days.
Yeah.
So just a short amount of time, and that's good. But one thing to mention about these, everyone gets afraid of them because they're big and heavy, but they're
not really.
Yeah, but not really.
Not that bad.
The poles are, I'm gonna say 10 pounds each.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm totally ballparking this because they feel very light, like a light bamboo type pole, and these are a lodgepole pine. Hi.
And these poles, were just harvested last fall.
Yeah,
so they haven't dried out completely.
Not even all the way dry. You can still kind of see they're kind of sweating a little bit of the sap and stuff. So they're great. Anyway, I'm gonna get into more depth on this, but I wanted to talk a little bit about that setup that I just did because it was ugly. Like I did better the last couple times. I just forgot the process. One of the best things to do, I just grab a picture on my phone. It reminds me what order to put the poles in, and then really all it is set up your 3 biggest, tie your 3 knots, wrap it 4 times, anchor it to the center or the outside, put your lifting pole, and I have my pole on the outside. You can have it on the inside where it becomes part of the mess, or on the outside, whatever, as long as you get it up there. Wrap it, tighten it from the top to the bottom if you can. In my case, I went bottom to bottom because I needed to tighten it up. Make your adjustments, put your stakes in. That's it. They're really simple to put up. The only thing that I can think the average person might have any kind of problems with is carrying it. I have a trailer. I just put it on a trailer. You can put it on a roof rack. There's a lot of options. Also, this is bigger than normal. This is a ginormous teepee.
Yeah.
As you can see, there's just a ton of space in here. So it's radiating crazy amounts of heat off the wall. So it's probably, I think average is 12 feet, and this one's 19. I got a big one though. I can put a family and a half, if not 2 families in here and live in it. This teepee's been sitting up in my backyard all winter long. I put it up last fall. It went all the way through the winter. It's now April, so it's lasts very well. All right, well, I'm gonna finish putting up the ghost lighter on the inside and get everything set up. We'll play with this some more. Thank you for helping me with this.
Check it out when it's fully completed.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
There you go.
Hey guys, I'm here with Eric, and we're going to talk a little bit about traditional teepees. He's got a full leather one behind him. Now, did you make this?
No.
Yeah.
This is actually owned by one of the other trappers down here.
So how close would this be to an original teepee?
This is actually a pretty good representation of what a historic buffalo hide teepee would be like. It's probably a little bit bigger than what you would see back in the early Plains history, because prior to that time, before horses came, the structures were a lot smaller because they used dogs to transport equipment and things like that. And so as the introduction of the horse came, the sizes of lodges became larger, and then as things changed from buffalo hide to canvas, again, teepee structures increased in size as well.
Very nice. So, as far as like the traditionally made teepees, this is all leather. Can you talk to me a little bit about the stakes and the lodgepole? I assume this is using lodgepole to make it.
Yep. Lodgepole makes it. It's the thing that's nice about lodgepole is it creates a very strong, lightweight, and straight teepee pole. Usually, when you harvest teepee poles, I like to do it when live standing. Then you have to peel the bark off, and then as they slowly dry, you can manipulate the pole so that it doesn't twist or bend or go crooked. And once they're dry, then they retain that shape. And again, they're lightweight. A lot of my poles, you can pick up one pole easily with one hand.
So tell me about the stakes. Yeah.
The stakes, they use different types of wood, and then as you can see, rawhide. If you were to hammer this type of a stake in with a regular metal hammer, you will mushroom out the end and smash the end, split the stake. But if you use like a wooden mallet or a piece of wood, you can hammer them in really well, and it doesn't destroy the end of the stake. The rawhide there just adds a little bit of strength to that, but typically this is the traditional way that a teepee would be staked down.
Now that looks like willow. Is that what we're looking at?
This could be, it's not willow, it's probably a birch.
A little bit red I'm seeing. There we go.
I'm trying to remember, there is one particular type of wood that they preferred on the stakes, but I can't remember the name of it. So, but with a teepee, you would normally, I don't know how much people know about the mechanics of a teepee. So, if you look around, you'll see a lot of times there's going to be a space between the bottom. This is called the cover. So you'll have a space between the ground and the cover. And then on the inside of a teepee, normally you would have another, what's called a liner in there. Some of the modern teepees, it's a lot easier to see those things. We didn't set one up in here because sometimes in the summer and in the hot weather, you don't need to set up a liner. But really what that does is an Indian really basically slept in his chimney. You can build a fire in there, and the type of wood that you use inside of a teepee is pretty critical. You don't generally want to use pine that has a lot of pitch and sap in it because it pops and snaps and sends little burning embers everywhere.
Burn your clothes.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons, wool is really nice to have, or hides are good to have in your teepee, because if you do get an ember, it's not going to really catch on fire. But the fires generally are fairly small and use cottonwood is good, aspen is pretty good wood, things like that. But then you'll see there's at the top of the teepee, we call this is the smoke. The two flaps are called smoke flaps, and the hole there is the smoke hole. And so, generally speaking, for sacred religious beliefs and things like that, plus it also makes sense. Teepees were generally set up facing east. So the direction of the sun, so the morning sun, and east is a pretty powerful direction to many of the native tribes. But anyway, and the wind usually does never come out of the east. So when you set up a teepee and you have a fire in there, you use the poles that are attached to the smoke flaps, and you can direct the ventilation of the smoke on the inside of the teepee. So if the wind happens to be blowing a little bit from the south, you'd open up the north flap and kind of close the south flap, and that would create a draw inside the teepee and suck the smoke out. So you can sit in there with a number of people and have a fire in the teepee, and that smoke is just drawn right straight out of the top of the smoke flaps.
So I'm at the Fort Buenaventura Mountain Man gathering, and I ran into Chris, and Chris Swanson teaches, how do we articulate this?
Absolutely. I'm a Plains Indian living historian.
Yeah, I like that.
And what that means is that I go around teaching people how the Plains Indians lived in teepees during the time that they did, because it was only about 150 years of Plains Indian history that was a teepee culture as we today think of it. You know, all Indians in the movies ride horses, wear big bonnets, and live in teepees, and that was not necessarily the case. This was really a small part of Indian history.
One thing that I really like is that ties in. So if you look at ancient history, they had wickiups, wigwams, longhouses, and stuff. And if you think about that, essentially they took a brush structure, put skins on it, and made it mobile, which is just genius.
Right, yeah, they started with smaller wickiups and things like that, which were basically, like you said, a brush structure. And if they were going out onto the plains to hunt buffalo or deer or rabbits or whatever, they absolutely just took a few hides and made a small tent out of it. But it was when horses came to the plains that they were able to develop larger tents that became teepees, where you could actually put a fire inside and have a really great year-round structure.
Before horses, what did they use?
Before horses, most Indian tribes were not nomadic. They were farming, they were hunter-gatherers, and they lived in permanent earth mounds, earth huts.
It's like pit houses.
A lot of brush types of structures. You know, every Indian tribe, there were more than 800 Indian tribes in America when we first got here.
Did they use dogs at one time?
They did use dogs, and dogs continued to be used after horses as well. Dogs were an important part of an Indian camp.
That's awesome.
Yep, but they were, and you know, the Plains tribes, the tribes that used teepees, the Lakota, the Cheyenne, the Arapaho, were not originally on the plains. They were originally farming tribes in Illinois, Indiana, and Minnesota that got pushed out here and had to learn to adapt a new lifestyle based on where they were living and their circumstances, and that's where they developed the teepees.
Basically, settlement, white people moved in, pushed the indigenous peoples out who adapted.
Right.
That is part of the
This is
ingenuity
all,
that to me is impressive.
Absolutely. So really, even though we think of this as an Indian structure, the reality is it was their adaptation to white encroachment, because you had them getting pushed out onto the plains, and then they very quickly got horses, which were released in New Mexico in the late 1690s. Yep. A Navajo medicine man led a revolt, and they drove all the Spanish out of New Mexico, and that's where they got cattle, that's where they got sheep, that's where they got horses. And so then we started very quickly, all of the Indians traded for horses, and it became the culture.
That's awesome. Something I think is interesting too, and a lot of people don't mention this, the Sami people in eastern Russia, northern Finland-ish, have a brush shelter that looks like a teepee. If I remember correctly, the Tlingit, the Inuit, or the Eskimo, one of those three or all three, had a form of, we can call it a teepee, but it more looked like a willow, what are those called? The arch-shaped structures. It's like a wiki up kind of, but they put leather skins over. So this is.
But did they put a fire in it? I don't think they did.
I don't know.
Did
No,
they?
they have a little spoon thing that they burnt fat in,
Right.
Which created flame, but I don't know if we can call that a fire because there really wasn't
It's
really
more of
high
a
north.
candle, and it's a little bit of a heater.
Yeah,
They
there just
use those in
wasn't any
igloos,
wood
too.
to burn.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that actually could put off quite a bit of heat in a small space. And one of the great things about a teepee is that you're no longer confined to that small space. You can actually
grow
stand
it,
up and move. The way I have it set up is traditional. There's a bed on each side and then a bed in the back for the owners.
So where was traditionally like the parents' bed, the main place?
Well, so first of all,
place of honor.
Yes. First of all, the woman owned the teepee, and so she and her husband slept in the back, unless there was an honored guest, and then you might let them sleep in the honored spot, is what it's called. And then, in order to keep things relatively sane, you had separation by gender. You had little girls and women sleeping on this side, and you had the men and the boys sleeping on this side. And so it would have been set up so that each had their own space to put their things. Now, a teepee is a relatively small space for 6 people to be all of the time. They spent 95% of their time outdoors. The teepee was really for sleeping and for getting out of inclement weather, and so you did most everything outside, including cooking. Most cooking actually occurred outdoors.
So the fire really inside of a teepee was really just keep it warm.
Right,
Can we
right.
tell them a little bit about how the ghost liner works?
Sure. What I have in here is a blanket liner. Originally, when they made a skin teepee, they just used whatever they had, more skins or blankets or pieces of cloth, to create a chimney. And what that does is it allows the smoke to go out the top. That's what really makes a teepee work.
Amazing is what it makes.
It makes it amazing. Yeah. And so if you're in here, I had this big fire pot. It's off the ground, too high. Really, if I had a fire on the ground, which is not permitted here, it's the best. Small fire, small sticks. Small sticks equal less smoke. You
More
can keep
oxygen, but quicker burning.
Yep. You can keep a teepee like this size warm very nicely in the wintertime with just a very small fire.
Even I've got a 19-footer that I've had in my backyard all winter long, a Nomadics Tipi, and I've spent the night in there multiple times with my little 1-year-old and 4-year-old with just a fire in the middle. It's got that draw, which I talked about earlier. It's really nice because it'll pull smoke. So if you get heat inside the teepee, you've got air coming in from the gap on the outer layer that flows up this inner layer and kind of combines in the top, and then
it's a natural
vacuums it all
chimney.
up. Yeah.
Yep, it just
And it gets
perfect.
rid of bugs.
Gets rid of bugs.
That's so
and
nice.
you know, it's actually in the summertime when it's warm day like today, it actually cools it off a little bit
Yeah, it
because it
feels nice
keeps
in
the
here.
air flowing. If you go into some of these square tents out here, they're
muggy.
just muggy and
Yeah.
and so you get great circulation in both directions. It's
And
just very comfortable.
strangely enough, the square tents that I've seen with the metal that they hold up end up being heavier than a teepee.
Yeah.
And then these types teepees are about the same weight because they're using the same poles and roughly the same amount of canvas. But
They're
you
not
get all
heavy.
this other
Yeah.
abilities that you just can't have with the square tents.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Well, and teepees just feel nicer too.
Yeah.
Like the round shape. Not only is it traditional
Feels
to
like
Native
a cave.
Americans, well, it does,
Yeah,
but it's
like in
also
an
kind of a
Indian well.
sacred circle. Is a sacred shape, and it just there's an energy that flows in a teepee that you don't get in another house.
So something I want to portray to people, this can be a mobile, I call it semi-permanent shelter. Not because it's not permanent, but because like I'm using mine for 3 days this weekend, and we're just going to pack it up. It took me about half an hour, 45 minutes to set up yesterday. It'll probably take less than that to put it away. And where I'm at right now, I mean, if we had food and water, you could stay there the rest of the year. That's what I really want to point out is even in today's modern technology or modern day situation, if you had a grid down situation, you can live out of these things for the rest of the year. And that's something people don't really readily grasp. It's mobile, you can pack it around. It's a little heavier than your tent and stuff, but it's way less heavy than a mud home or structure of some sort. So
Right.
it's literally a mobile home that you can live out of with a family. with super lightweight.
Yeah,
So.
and a lot of people that I know, including myself, but a lot of my clients and my friends, put a teepee in their backyard, and like you, just sleep in it at night because it's so much cooler outside in the summertime than it is in the house. And
Kids like it.
Awesome. Yeah.
So.
But you still have the convenience of being near your bathroom.
Yeah, you can go and do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So about how much time of the year are you living at this one or one like this?
Well, so in the last 3 years, I've started being a more full-time as opposed to a part-time living historian, and I spend between March and October at least 15 days a month.
It's like half
on the road.
Like 6 months a year almost.
Yeah. And so what I do is I travel around to museums, historic sites, national parks, places like Fort Laramie, and I'll set up there, and I'll stay in my teepee the whole time I'm there, and
That's
then
awesome.
they usually let me stay extra if I need space between then and the next the next event that I go to.
So a lot of people worry about smoke inside of a teepee. How do we deal with that?
Excellent question. Well, on the outside, we'll walk out here in a minute and I'll show you, there are 2 flaps, and on the top ends of those flaps are some poles. If you move those poles, you can adjust the direction of those. And what you could actually do is control how much air is coming in through the top or not coming in through the top. And you can also wrap them closed so that if it's raining, no rain comes in. And that's pretty important because that's how you really control the temperature, but also
let the heat out.
And so forth. And it's another point. A lot of people always ask me, why don't you always point your teepee east? Because sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And the real key to setting up a teepee is always make sure you're pointing your teepee away from the leeward wind. So you want the wind hitting the back of your teepee.
Air going along the side of it, you always want to go with the vent away.
Away, absolutely, because the worst thing you can do is set up so you have the wind blowing into those smoke
all
clouds.
the smoke down inside.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, like in a canyon, it's interesting because you can't face it in either direction. You have to face it towards the wall. The wind goes up a canyon in the morning and down the canyon at night, and so you're always going to be positioning your teepee to
turn
where
your flaps here so it sucks it out that way, and turn it here so it sucks it out that way.
Yeah. Okay. So technically, a lot of people think that you're always supposed to face a teepee east to the rising sun, but that was only because in most places on the plains, the wind is a west wind.
Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
so you would really adjust accordingly. And
What's a good way to check the wind? I know you can put stuff on the top.
You could look at branches, you can look at the grass. I mean, you can generally tell where the wind is blowing. And if it's your house, before you set it up, watch for a few days and see where is the prevailing wind to be coming. And then if it ends up shifting and staying shifted, then you need to move your teepee and adjust it.
Adjust a little bit, yeah.
Because
Especially if it's
they
gonna be
will blow down.
Permanent or whatever.
Right, yeah. They're good in the wind, but they will blow down. I have a website. It's plainsindianreproductions.com. And I have a schedule of events on there. I've got lots of things going on. I'll be in Pinedale in July.
I'll leave that underneath.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. plainsindianreproductions.com. I also have a great Facebook page, Sharp Knife's Blanket.
Nice.
I'm the Sharp Knife Woman.
To make it easy, I will put those right in the those 2 links in the discussion box right below the video if you want to go click on those and check them out.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Enjoy visiting with you.
So that's a video about teepees. Teepees give you the ability to be mobile, to be permanent, all in the same structure, to channel smoke right out the top, get rid of bugs, sleep multiple people. I just can't rave enough about them. They are probably one of the most genius structures ever created. So if you're interested in some teepees, you want to check out one like mine, if you can go to tipi.com, it's TIPI.com, or check out Nomadics, which is Nomad, ICS, Nomadics. Just search that on Google and you'll be able to pull these up. Some of the most high quality teepees I've ever seen. They are made by sail creators, people that are making sails for sail ships, so they're very, very, very well built. I've had 3 people this weekend alone stop and ask me where they can get a teepee like this. So if you're interested, I'll leave a link right in the discussion box. That'll be the first link that you see. If you got any questions about this video, leave comments down below. I try to answer every single comment. If I don't get back to you quick, send me another message. Sometimes I miss them. So I hope this was valuable for you. I hope you learned something. I hope that you go out and get yourself a teepee, take it, try it, use it, enhance your bushcraft skills, your primitive skills. It's a very life-altering experience, something that gives you the ability to feel connection with people, nature, the outdoors. All right, guys. Thank you for watching T-Jack Survival.